5, 6, 7, 8.
Hello, everyone. I had to say it on beat.
Welcome to the You Don't Look Like an Engineer podcast,
Today, we're going to be introducing our next guest.
who is a wonderful human being and a very resilient person and a woman whom we really enjoy to talk to, Roberta Brosco.
Yeah, she's got such an inspiring journey, and I think for women looking to, without any spoilers, women looking to elevate their careers and get on the next level, she's had such a great role to play. We'd like to let you know that she is a mindfulness and leadership coach who helps professional women unlock their leadership potential through mindfulness-based training.
I think for someone that is also thinking about like shifting careers and they feel like they don't have any role models, she could be a good person to, ask for guidance. Roberta was an engineer in the construction industry for over a decade and has a lot of insights into the barriers and challenges that women face in our industry.
Yeah, and then doing a hard 180 out of engineering, she got into corporate leadership training and is now helping women achieve their leadership dreams by improving their self-confidence, self-awareness, leadership presence, and communication skills.
She is making leaders more aware and present.
And we keep building all the suspense, and you must be wondering, how can she help me? So without further ado, Roberta, if you could please give us a little intro on your journey and your origin and how you got to be where you are today.
Yes, I'm a mindfulness and leadership coach and founder of Presentis Leadership. So I'm a retired engineer. I've spent 12 years in the construction industry as a mechanical engineer. And then I started my coaching business on the side. And that was like 5 or 6 years ago. So I was doing part-time coaching and part-time engineering. And then I decided to go full-time coaching last year. And now I help professional women unlock their leadership potential through mindfulness-based training. I also help organizations wanting to support their women along this journey of growth and development and mentoring through corporate workshops and keynotes.
That's so cool. So how did you end up in this mindfulness leadership coaching from engineering?
The fact is, I was kind of looking for something that would help me manage my anxiety, all my self-doubt and self-confidence, and I couldn't really find it in terms of like proper training. So I gave up. And then what happened, I got into meditation and into mindfulness just for my own practice, just to kind of understand what is mind training. I love science, so I was attracted to the scientific side of mindfulness and the neuroscience behind it. So I started to kind of getting into it for myself. I felt better. I felt there was something practical that was helping me navigate all my challenges, but mostly my emotions, and I started to feel more calm, more powerful. I was like, wait a minute, I need to share this with the world. So then after probably 10 years of practicing mindfulness and meditation, I looked up for a teacher training course. And then I got my certification a few years ago. And I guess the thing was like, it was helping me so much in my everyday life, as a woman in engineering, as a human being trying to grow and be a better person. So that's why I was like, it's very effective, it's practical, and being engineers, we love practical strategies and tools. That's why I was like, this is actually really, really good and effective.
I am so fascinated, firstly, that I love that as engineers, we also like to take things in our own hands. And I love that you did that and actually found, an approach that works and is helping so many women. But if we could take a few steps back, because we know that the industry's it has things to work on, especially for women in the engineering industry. I'm curious to know if you ever got to realize whether the issues around, you having anxiety had anything to do with the way the industry is run, or is it just something you needed to work on with your emotional regulation and your mindfulness and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a very great question. I think it's both. I think it starts from within us. There is so much talk about mentoring and promoting women, right? We should only be promoting women. We should only be mentoring them and helping them become these great and impactful leaders. And I think it's both. you can't have one, unless you have this support system. But I think for me it was like, okay, what can I do today to help me navigate all these emotions and all these barriers that I was facing as a woman leader? And my answer was, I need to start from myself. I need to start from within. And then I can start, going outward with my communication, with reframing my behaviors and emotional patterns. But it has to start from us, from within us. And that's where my most empowering moment, I think, was like, wait a minute, I can do something about this. It's not something that comes from outside. It comes from within.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. Like, it's empowering, but it might be scary for some people at the start because, like, there's a lot of responsibility on that as well. But before we got into like all this conversation, of the good stuff that comes with responsibility, I want you to define what meaningful leadership is for those that are not aware of it.
Yes. Okay. I love this question, actually. I was just talking about this with the girls in my community today. So a mindful leader is basically a leader that is aware. You are more aware. You have this leadership presence that you can take into the meeting room. You can take into that conversation with your manager, with the people around you, is bringing that awareness. Awareness of what? Awareness of your thoughts, of your emotions, of your behaviors, and then kind of trying to reshift what doesn't work for you. Because at the end of the day, we all want to feel that sense of belonging, of joy, all the good stuff, right, that we can experience as human beings. So mindful leadership is about being that leader that is present, that is there, that is able to hold that space for the people around you. And the impact comes from wanting to help others, wanting to make the workplace a better place, wanting to have that project going smoothly and enjoying the process in the meantime. I think for me, the main thing the mindful leadership training gave me was the feelings of joy and meaning. And I didn't want to go to a 9 to 5 and then go home and, oh my God, and start, whinging about my life. I didn't want that for me. So that's why I decided to embark on this journey of like, how can I make my day more meaningful? And there's still days where it's not that meaningful, but at least I know I have the tools and the ability to bring me back to a place of calm.
So I guess attributes of a meaningful leader are empathy and I guess the ability to be present in the face of all difficult things. Yeah.
It's exactly that. It's about having a focus. So I was quite scattered in terms of my thinking. I had this very loud and, very busy mind, especially self-doubt in myself with my accent because I'm from Italy originally. So I had all that self-confidence. So my mind was very busy. Plus I had my to-do list and my projects and my meetings. And so mindful leadership brought me back to a place to like calm, to the here and now. I was more focused. I had this spaciousness in my mind that I wasn't able to find. So I went from like having this monkey mind, as we call it in mindfulness terms, to like slow down, breathe, be present, be grounded, and have this clarity. So creativity, I was able, to actually enjoy the whole process.
So interested because, self-doubt is a very common challenge. So very, very keen to unpack that and how to fix that, for many of the listeners or just what you've found. But I feel like there's been a lot of there's always a moment, that takes us down a path. You're like they say, you're always like one choice away from a completely different life. Do you have any specific moment, I suppose, A, that led you down the path of engineering, and then B, the second pivotal moment where you were like, no, I need to fix my mind?
So I got into engineering because I'm a very curious person. And it may sound a little bit, very weird, but that was like, I'm curious about how's things work. And that's why I love all this neuroscience behind the mindfulness practice, because it tells me how the mind works. And for me, understanding how I was so, into physics when I was in high school. So I got into engineering. And plus I wanted to prove, my dad, he was a very technical person, that I could do this. And then as soon as I went into the construction industry, I started to enjoy it even more, because it was like this high paced and very fast industry. But at the same time, I was solving a problem, I was contributing. So that's where my nature is about giving my contribution, is helping others, and I was doing that through projects. And then when that wasn't enough, I said, I want to help people. So that's kind of where the transition from engineering to coaching went kind of smoothly. And I started to enjoy the feeling of uplifting others and making a difference.
I think it is something that makes us really human, sort of like, that we can all connect with.
Yeah.
Helping other people, it gives us that sense of purpose is really beautiful. I guess I'm curious to know, because it requires a lot of confidence to change careers, and how did you navigate that transition? Because a lot of people in our industry might think that is very like, I don't mean to disrespect it, but like woohoo or like fluffy, or like, what are you on?
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that?
And I think the way I dealt with that, I was able to put my mindfulness training into practice and said, I am here and I'm going to let go. Let go of the title, let go of the identities and the labels that people put in. People like, you're going from being an associate engineer to a coach. And I said, yes, and I'm going to do it with a very bold movement, because I believe in something. I believe that I can help women. I believe that this practice is so life-changing. So when you start to have like a vision, a mission, I call it, or maybe like just a pull, because it starts with a little pull. It starts with like, I really want to help this person. And once you do it, you feel like you have achieved something in your heart. There's more meaning to your life. And I've learned so much during my career. I have a bachelor's and a master's in engineering, so I did a lot of studying, and that pull kind of became my desire to create a movement to help women in the construction industry, to help women in engineering. And when you have this desire of creating a movement, and you're a little bit of a bold person, because I've always been, kind of, let's jump, let's do it. I just jumped. Yeah.
I guess that's uplifting, because in a sense that's sort of what we want to do as well, with the podcast. And it takes a lot of time and courage as well to be doing it. And sometimes it does feel like maybe perception wise it can be a bit like, your focus is now on uplifting women in the industry and you're not focused on technical items. And I don't know, like sometimes I just have it in my head where people might be wondering, like, are you even technically competent, kind of thing. So it is good to reinforce that, it's about believing in your why and just plow forward, like let go of the negative self-perceptions.
Exactly that. And it's about creating your own self-worth. It's about creating your own identity, because every single person that you meet along your journey will have a perception of you, will have an identity that or this vision that they have of you, right? My parents, they want me to be an engineer for life. And my kids, I'm their mom. So there is so many identities that I have. But the question is, what is your identity? What is that you want to be known for? And when that was so clear, I was like, there is no stopping me, And this is because, seriously, my mindfulness training helped me to let go. The best thing that I was able to do, I lean into the fear of the unknown, because it was very scary. But then I practiced my emotional awareness. And I said, okay, what is coming up for me right now? So this didn't happen overnight. Don't believe when the people say, yeah, just I woke up one morning and I changed career. It is a process of self-discovery and self-acceptance. And I decided to put what I wanted to do in my life first. And it has its challenges, but every decision that we make as leaders has its own challenges. It depends what you do with them, how you overcome them.
Wow. Look, this subject of like self-discovery, and like I'm pretty sure I'm gonna cry in this episode, so just bear with me.
Yes.
But what I'm really intrigued is You're talking about building your self-worth, and just like removing outside approval and opinions from that. And I'm really intrigued as like a young professional trying to figure out her worth herself. Like how do you start with that? Like
Yeah.
how do you build your self-worth?
So I packed all this up in my training program, because I found out the journey and I was like, okay, this is amazing. So basically the 6 pillars of this explosion of worth is, I started from self-awareness, and that's the thing that most people skip. Is like, it's the basics, is your values, what you believe in, what you want to be known for, what's unique about you. Like, if people ask me, what's your unique thing or genius, as they call it, I wouldn't be able to answer that, and then I said, okay, I stopped, because this is what is truly the engine, or the fuel of the engine, is my authentic self. So I started loving my accent. I started loving the fact that I was a professional migrant woman. I started loving the fact that I made it. Like, my first 7 months in Australia, I was selling lollies at a lolly shop and working 12 hours a day. Yes, this is how my Australian journey started. And then I was going home and sending CVs and making phone calls. So I just started from where I wanted to be. I wanted to be this person that help other women, and then making peace with that. I sat with this feeling. I sat with this call, and it was bringing up a lot of, what other people going to think of this? And it was especially all this pressure from the people that you love the most. Like, my parents are still not approving my change of direction in life, and that is okay, because that is their journey. That doesn't mean I don't love them, and that doesn't mean they don't love me, but we can disagree. And this is something that mindfulness taught me. We can disagree and still love each other, and still be in the same team, and still be, friends. So then, again, self-awareness, and connect to that. Give yourself that space to connect to your own authentic self. And then start questioning your thoughts. Start questioning, how do I perceive my worth? Is that my dad's vision? Is it my mom's? Is it my partner, my kids? Do I put my worth in the hands of others? And again, that was one of the most empowering moments of my life, because I said, my worth doesn't come from anyone else. It's my worth, it's my perception of my self-worth. So I generally wrote down all the limiting beliefs that I was having around my worth. And for me, my worth was connected to maybe the title of being associate mechanical engineer, that kind of external titles and things that are not really coming from within. And then after that, I started to connect into my purpose. And that was the key to, like, that's it. There's no stopping me. But still wasn't kind of enough for me to get me going. So the 3 things that I teach my women is self-love, and it is a practice of self-love, self-trust, and gratitude. These 3 ingredients were the things that changed everything in my life, and how I see life, how I interact with people, because I start trusting myself, again, begging myself. And yes, I'm going to fail, and that is okay. That is part of the journey. And then be grateful for where I was going with my energy. But these are all practices. These are things that you don't find. You practice, you cultivate these things.
I'm so thankful that I asked you that and that you have given us a snippet of, the work that you do, because this goes to show that it's really powerful and it's going to be very beneficial for people. So listeners, if you want to obviously find out more about what Roberta is teaching, I'm sure everyone benefits from it. So we'll leave her website and like everything in the episode description. Because this is gold. Thank you so much for sharing it.
I was welcome.
It is, and I feel like a lot of the listeners, it's I guess where you're coming from is you've been through that journey, and you've been through each of these learning phases and had to unlock a lot of things along the way. Often I hear conversations with people saying, "Oh, like I've tried meditation and it's just not for me. I can't get my mind to be still." But like that's sort of the purpose of going, essentially. But I would like to know, as your experience, like what was your first session like when you got introduced to mindfulness and meditation? Like what? Yeah.
Oh, well, I have a story that is one of the funniest moments of my life. So, my first meditation ever, I was in Thailand, and it was one of those hot tropical day, and I was exploring Thailand on my own, and I wanted to go and check out all those temples that people were talking about. So I went to one temple and I saw this monk, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting the full real experience of of Thailand. And I asked him about, meditation. And he said to me, very great question. He grabbed a chair and he made me sit in front of a white wall. And his wall was like massive wall, and it was 40 degrees, 90% humidity. And he left me there for more than 35 minutes, which it doesn't seem that long, but for me, it was the longest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I could see that I was so nervous, so agitated. I couldn't get my mind to just be still for a moment because I'd never done it before. So then, that was the first experience. And he came back and he said bye to me. He said, I hope you enjoyed it. Bye. And I was just like, wow, this is such a powerful experience. And that's when I started to look into it. Yeah, he was a very picturesque character. But that's what kind of got me into it because I had so many things happening, the heat, the humidity, my own mind, there was so much happening. But I started to become curious about what was that all about. And then I started practicing, and the second practice, I hated. I hated every second again because my mind was so used to the doing, that slowing down and simply be with myself was a torture. But I kept going because, again, I'm a curious person. So I wanted to see where this was, taking me. And I had that gut feeling, that intuition that this was something that I really needed for my mind, for my anxiety, for my public speaking. I was terrified of public speaking. So I knew that this was something was there, but I couldn't quite catch what was that about. And then I think it was the third or fourth session that I decided that this is, wow. I got into that state of mind where I found peace, even for a fraction of a second. But I found that peace, that spaciousness, that presence, and I was hooked. I was like, that's it. That's what I want to be.
And going back to the six pillars, I guess what makes it so uncomfortable for someone to be able to sit still with themselves? Is it a lack of self-love or a self-trust thing?
Or self-control?
It's not even, it's actually, the problem is that we're trying to control. It's actually the opposite. We're trying to control our mind because we think that the mindfulness meditation is about stop thinking. And that was my first belief about meditation, that I need to stop thinking. And that is impossible, my friends. We don't want that. We don't want that. That is not what minds do. Our beautiful minds are built for thinking. Our cognitive skills are so powerful. But with the practice, what we learn is the skill of paying attention to whatever is happening to your mind right here, right now, without any judgment, without being carried away by our thoughts. You just sit with them. They come and they go. And that is okay. When we wander off, because that's what minds do, we simply bring it back to the present moment. And you might do that a million times every practice, or you might do that, a few times. That's part of the experience.
I'm curious to know how, like, for example, because these are all like skills we are sort of like talking about from an individual perspective. But now if we like put the lenses of a leader in a difficult situation, how can they implement these techniques in like a difficult situation? For example, when, I don't know, expectations weren't met or there's conflict in a team, for example.
Yeah. So mindfulness is a skill, right? And whatever you learn and you practice during your meditation, that's the beauty of it, that then you can translate that skill onto the real world. And when you sit with your meditation, right, and you have this thought, oh my God, I haven't replied to that email, and you start to feel that emotion rising up, or I haven't put the washing out, or whatever that is coming up for you, you learn to let go of that thought and you learn to come back to the present moment. Now, as a leader, we have this ability of developing this leadership presence, and you can feel it. When you talk to someone that is actually present, you can feel that they're right there, present moment. So then the skills that you learn during your practice, you apply them in the real world. And when you feel that emotion arising, you're like, this person is talking over me in a meeting and I'm getting really angry because, and all those thoughts, I'm a woman, and, all those thoughts that come up. Then the greatest skill that mindfulness can teach us is to catch ourselves. We catch ourselves and we come back to the present moment. We regulate our emotion, and this can be done. You don't have much time to do this, and that's why it's a skill that you can refine. But once you catch that and come back to the present moment, then you're able to be that grounded present leader despite being triggered, despite disagreeing with the other person. But you're able to bring that best version of yourself in that moment because you're grounded, you're focused, you're mindful of what you're feeling, and you're able to let that go.
So it is a skill that has to be honed in every day.
Yes, exactly. It's a skill.
It's interesting because I remember going to see Eckhart Tolle, and he was talking about how to be like present, and he was actually talking about the power of now. And what he was saying is that we all go through a journey of where we are very self-aware, and then we get lost, and then we go back, and then we get lost, and then we go back again. And I'm finding it interesting what you're saying, because perhaps when we get lost is when we just stop practicing it. And whatever you don't use, you lose.
And it's because we go through life, we change, we evolve. So the me before kids was a different meditator or a different leader than me after kids. Every identity shift that we have in life, we have to reset our skills. And this is not just for mindfulness, it's for everything. There's a reshifting, a reshaping of what we're able to do. But the key component of mindfulness meditation is actually the compassion element. Because what happens, you will get lost in your thought, you drift off to La La Land. And if you're not able to let the thought go and kind of bring that compassion element to yourself, let go of the self-judgment. I should be better at this. I shouldn't be thinking this, or I shouldn't be thinking that. This constant doubting and chatter. When we bring that self-compassion in the equation, you are able to let go. You are able to come back to the present moment, forgive yourself for not being this perfect human being. And we don't practice meditation because we want to become good at meditation. We practice this skill because we want to be a better person and become better at life.
Yeah. I look, when you were talking about being a mindful leader, I was thinking about people who are set on their own ways and don't want to learn that skill of being a mindful leader. How can we approach these people? Because it seems like the industry has a few of them and they are hindering our learning and our, I guess, environmental, or organizational climate.
That's a very interesting question. And that happens in the workspace, it happens at the supermarket, it happens everywhere. So human beings are driven. human beings that haven't been through a personal development and they haven't reached their higher selves, they're ego driven. So, and these are kind of behaviors that we can show when you start to feel triggered and you want to win the conversation, you want to prevail on others. That is simply your ego that is driving, that is running the show. And unless you attend to the ego and do some reshaping and reshifting of your mindset and heart set, as I call it, it's really hard to let the ego go, because the ego always wants to win. I want to be right. And this is the main issue with communication in the workplace. You have to deal with people that are not where you want them to be. But the greatest gift we can give people, even when they're not playing our game or they're not that higher selves, is letting that go and kind of forgive them for driving with their ego. And the ego wants to be, wants to win. And what helps me is understanding and keeping this in mind with every interaction that I have, is that every single person wants to be seen, valued, heard, and understood. So yes, you will have these nasty interactions at work, but you have the power over your way of letting go of your ego. So if someone is, and this used to happen a lot during meetings, I was the only woman in the meeting room and I'm 5'1", I'm quite short. So, even like physically, I'm quite petite. And I used to get all these loud voices, going over me. And that really affected my perception, again, my self-worth. But then the only thing I was able to do in that moment is to understand that I have something to bring to the table. But if that person is triggered and acting through the ego and I respond with my ego, no interaction, nothing can come out of that. It's two egos going, is like a cockfighting type of scenario. And what I did once I implemented my mindfulness-based training, first of all, I grounded myself because I knew that anger was coming up. So grounding myself, practicing my emotional awareness, my emotional awareness and regulation, and then bringing that compassion element, but at the same time being assertive. And I said, I understand where you're coming from. I understand. And I was talking to the ego person, not to that person, because if I was talking to the person, it kind of didn't work. So I pictured their ego like a ball in front of them. And I said, I am talking, not from my ego, but to the ego, and helping them reach that. What's the problem to be solved? What's the real problem to be solved? And what's the outcome? And that helped my communication skills so much.
That's
Very good. We have steps. I love that. Going back to the leadership example that we were talking about, because I like this, because I think people can use these examples at work. Like, for example, if you as a young person, or not even young, but if you're working in a team and you're providing your work at your best capacity, and someone isn't able to sort of like provide good constructive feedback, and they are just critical, and they are like, I don't think you like cut for this kind of attitude. How can you set a boundary with that person and show them that that's not like a right approach, and perhaps there's a better way of communicating it? Do you have any tips for that?
I do, actually. So that I've gone through this experience. I think all of us, we've been through this experience of like, getting feedback that wasn't really constructive and positive. And clearly, I choose to lead with my heart, bringing in empathy, but it's not a thing that is, not everyone can lead from the heart. Most people are still in their minds. And when you lead from your head, it's all about logic. It's all about, I need you to go from A to B, and I need you to do it in a certain, amount of time and productivity. So I can feel that push of people like, you got to be more logic, more straightforward. The fact that it's actually counterintuitive is that when you lead with your heart, you embrace head and heart at the same time. So you can be logic, you can be driven by this heart and really creating this space where you build this empathy for this person, right? So when you are on the other end and you're receiving this feedback, and the best thing to do, first of all, is to forgive that person for being so, direct, because in that moment you're feeling hurt. So your ego wants to respond to say, no, I'm going to show you that actually I can be. This is where I belong. I have a place at this table, But by doing that, it's kind of like it never really worked. And again, because then you're starting to drive that conversation with your ego. I received feedback in my life as an engineer that weren't really good. And I found myself crying in the car after reading a really bad feedback from a client. And it was like my third or fourth year. I was in the car just sobbing. I'm like, in any possible language, English, Spanish, it was all coming together. And the first thing I did, and I wanted to do, was to reply to that email and show them that I was worth it. What I did actually, I sat with the feeling. I sat with the disappointment because, the biggest truth about leadership is that we meet people where they are. And this is what we want to aim. We need to meet people where they're at, not where you want them to be. So even for me, responding to that conversation with, I'm going to show you that I know. Again, that is that person that will have to go through their ego, deconstructing their own ego. And that's their journey. But what I can do, I can actually show them that I deserve this place at the table. So I didn't react, but I responded. And the most important thing for me was to talk to my manager, because my manager read that. And my manager's manager read that. So for me, it was more important, instead of proving this person wrong, what I did, I actually talked to my manager and I expressed my feeling. I used the iMessages, that is a really, really important communication tool. I expressed my feeling, and people cannot say anything about your feeling. So constructive feedback clearly wasn't constructive. It was just a very hurtful feedback, but we can decide how we respond to whatever happens to us. And I'm glad I didn't send that email, because it would have been such a waste of energy. We waste so much energy trying to prove other people wrong. And I'm kind of like, okay, what is my desired outcome? My desired outcome is that my manager, I have this amazing relationship with my manager. So my ego didn't respond to the other person. And this is hard because 80% of the times we react, to stimuli, to people telling us certain things, and catching ourselves is the hardest thing that you can possibly do. Yeah. Sometimes
That's really valuable. I love it.
I thought about actually, after a few years, maybe catching up with that person and said, hi, that was such a hurtful thing, but I've learned so much from it. Because in that moment, I realized actually that no matter where you are, in which industry, if you're a minority, if there will always be someone that is not there to support you. And I'm seeing this with my own parents. They're not there to support me, but that doesn't mean that I can still love them or have that relationship with them. Now, with people from work, it's different. We don't have to keep in touch, but at the same time, it taught me to stand my ground and be in my power.
Yeah. Wow. Just so you didn't say anything to this person, and you haven't yet.
Yeah, no, I didn't. But you know what I did? I did in my heart. That was the key, is I forgave this person. I brought this compassion towards this person, because who knows what he was thinking, what he was going through. And people are going through battles that we don't know of. Maybe he thought that I wasn't a good engineer, and that is okay. That is his version of me. What really
I
matters is
guess
my.
what
Yeah.
happens is, yeah, for most people, I think sometimes that email is not in the form of an email, it's a thought in their own head. So, like for people that are their worst and harshest critics and are giving themselves such negative feedback in a moment where, you know, they might have made a mistake or done something wrong, um, how would you approach it, the solution in a similar way? Like, how would they even recognize that and treat themselves better, essentially?
So you're talking about your self doubt, your own self criticism and self doubt. Was that? Yes. Well, that is actually where I started, because when you start to forgive yourself and you start to love yourself and trust yourself, and again, practices, so things that we kind of have to repeat and put ourselves into that practice, into that instance where you do love yourself, but you need to practice it because it doesn't come from external, it comes from within. So the way I forgave myself in that moment of
Let's say
like,
you made a pretty big mistake, like there was a
yeah,
deadline due and like you were a structural engineer and you messed up a calculation and now, you know, shit's hit the fan, sort of thing.
well, just admitting and, just kind of coming to that feeling of, I messed up and that is okay. I'm human. Probably in that project that person gave me that really bad feedback, and I'm pretty sure I did something wrong, but in the same time, it's like, how is this going to impact my worth? Does that mean I'm a bad person? Does that mean I'm a bad engineer? Does that mean that I'm not worthy of this title, of this salary, of this everything that is around me? And we make mistakes. That's something that we learn through meditation as well, is to be okay with the discomfort, is to be okay with my arm is itchy, I need to scratch my arm right now during this session. That is the discomfort that comes from not doing the right thing, from making a mistake. There is a discomfort, there is, a sense of guilt, a sense of like, I don't belong here. I don't know about you ladies, but for me, it happened a lot of times where I felt like I don't belong here in this, technical team, or, this, because I was letting myself down, and the pressure I put on myself to perform 100%. You don't have to perform 100%. You need to show up. That's what matters. That I was still there during that meeting. After that feedback, I kept showing up. It's how you lean into that discomfort, into that setback, to
Mm.
learn from it.
I think we've all had moments where like we make a mistake and we really like make it as it was part of our worth, as you said, like, oh, like if we made this mistake, like we're not worthy of this position. And I think that's when you start to sort of like, I guess, have that conversation with yourself about, every time that I make a mistake, I'm not gonna be worthy and I'm probably gonna make keeps. So maybe I have to like, you know, reframe the way I'm looking at making mistakes.
Exactly.
So absolutely.
Yeah, and love yourself.
I have a really interesting question. You know, you have, I guess, insights from two very different industries, and again, they sort of like work different parts of your brain. What is strengths or perspectives do you think that individuals with like an engineering background can bring in, like mindfulness, from your experience?
So, how is mindfulness going to help engineers?
The other way around, actually. So how do engineers, like your engineering brain and you know, like the process way of looking at things or the detail, helps you in your mindfulness practices?
Oh, I love this question. So, I think that we need the logical side to take action. Like, leaders take action, right? So, it's not just about being mindful and present, but it's also balancing the logical side. So the logical side of an engineer, of any human being really, is is about planning, is about taking action, is about moving forward from a prefrontal cortex side of things, that is where the logical side happens. And then the mindfulness component, which is basically the skill of paying attention to the moment to moment experience without any judgment, that tapping into that being. So the engineering logical side is the doing, and the mindfulness intuition is the being, and we need both. So the way that the engineering side can help the intuition is to remind him, hello, you need both. It's all about the balance of these two sides of our brain, the doing, because we need to take action, and the being, the intuition, the creativity, this feminine energy, right? Sometimes they are called masculine and feminine, but it's all the same. It's the doing and the being, the logical and the intuition balance.
And how do you envision, like, say, in 10 or 15 years, we've managed somehow to implement, these mindfulness strategies, and we've made mindful leaders? What do you think the landscape of society, or even a mindful leader in the future, would look like? Like, yeah.
We won't be living our whole life in our head. We will drop down into our hearts. And, this kind of brings that collaboration, that it's not me or you, but it's us. It's win-win. It's, kind of working together towards something bigger than us. And this is what mindfulness did to me and to all the women in my community, because it's not just us. We want to go out there and bring this light into the world by bringing that I'm grounded, I'm present, I make mistakes, but I still love myself. And I practice this gratitude for what I have. And I bring compassion into the equation. So this revolution of mindful leadership has started, and I'm so pleased and grateful that I'm on I'm on this revolution, because heart-led type of leadership is what truly brings that meaning to people. At the end of the day, people will not remember how much you pay them, what projects I worked on. I can't remember. I don't remember, but I do remember the people that I worked with, and the culture that wasn't toxic, but it was very positive, and how we came together, all the women that I met along the way. So at the end of the day, what makes a difference is truly how you make people feel. And we get one chance at this life. So for me, there's no other way of living life in your career, all in your head, trying to win. Yeah.
I have one last one, Laura, if you, sorry. I'm just so, yeah, it's so interesting. Obviously that's like a goal where, like, we want to start with the end in mind and see that that's what we're working towards. But if we're looking at the landscape of, where AI is going, or, social media and everything that is like waging a war in our attention, there's going to be VR that's like coming in to daily life and everything. It's a war in our attention, and attention is basically the key for mindfulness. Do you think practically, as a society, we're going to have a majority working towards mindfulness, or is it going to be the select few that really have to think about it and break out of the norms that are entering in society?
That is such a good question. So it really depends. It's not what you have, is how you use it. I don't know if it makes sense. So you can have the best tool like AI and social media. There's so much noise that these amazing tools bring, but it's truly up to us then to use them in a way that is beneficial to us and to our community. And it's about how we use them, is how we want our reality to be. So, in my as an entrepreneur, we use AI for content creation, right? But then what is really important for me is my voice. Where is my voice in all of that? So then I decide to put my voice in every post, in every interaction, in every call, in this beautiful interview that we're doing right now. So it's truly about you, again, deciding to show up and bring in your true self. And the landscape we make the landscape. We make our own reality. I hope that kind of
Yeah,
answers the
I like that
question.
too. I like that because it's like choose wisely when you put your attention to.
Yes, our attention
Yeah.
is limited, and and this is why it's so good to let go of thoughts, let go of identities, letting go, of things that don't serve us. Because once you put your attention there, like a laser pointer, that's I always tell my ladies to use it as a laser pointer. If you use your attention as a laser pointer, that has a battery, it has a life, so you can't really use it for a long period of time. So you need to be wise, you need to choose, you need to know what you give importance to, and one practice that we do, for example, we stop complaining, we stop whinging, and we stop judging. Is the ccg journal, as I call it, is one of the activities that we do, because our attention is so limited. So if you waste it complaining or judging, or being out there, it will run out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you feel drained after complaining and whinging and doing all of that. It's a counteractive.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we can
I sometimes complain
and imagine
and I
all
catch
We all do,
myself and
but
I'm like,
yeah.
wow. And that's the conflicting aspect of it. You're like, okay, I can clearly tell I have been complaining and not doing anything about it. It's a battle. Yeah. Roberta, thank you so much for coming today. This has been an amazing interview. There's something about Roberta that I must share with everyone. The first time that I had a call with her, I cried. The second time, I probably came and was so emotional to her. And then today, in my own interview, she still has the power to bring tears and emotions out of me. So there's something about you. Yeah, my emotions just come through.
And that's the beauty of being humans. Yeah. Yes, emotions are so
Thank you
powerful.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited to see, yeah, where your mindfulness journey takes you and helps so many women. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Yeah, and thank you for
Yeah.
coming and helping
Yes.
and sharing it with our audience, because
There's
I
some
know that
valuable
from
tips in there.
listening to
Yeah.
this, you're gonna have some people knocking on your door.
Right. My doors are always
Yes.
open,
Yeah.
and it's all about bringing women together. So, yeah. Thank you so much. That's why I love women. Okay. Can I say I love it? No, there's so much energy and good things when women come together. I just absolutely love it.